A couple of months back, I reviewed a mini PC that ran an Intel Celeron N100 processor. This thing is absolutely tiny, and for the last several months, it has actually been plugged into my living room projector. If I want to watch different streams of things, sometimes a web browser is a really nice way to go, and that's kind of where it's lived, and it's done a great job in that role. Sometimes you might want a little bit more power. So today we're looking at an N150 mini PC. It's slightly larger than the one I reviewed last, but it's still very, very small. You can see here, like I said, N150 processor. That's going to be a little bit faster than the N100. Not a massive difference. I'm going to give you some sort of benchmarks, some ideas throughout this video of what to expect. 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM is good to see. A 512 gig SSD, which is actually an M.2 drive. We're going to talk about what that actually means in the real world as well. We do have a couple of HDMI ports on the back of this thing, and it is only $169. There's an $11 coupon, and there should be a promo code in the description down below, which might bring that price down just a little bit more. Okay, so here it is, the ACEMAGIC Vista Mini V1. With this, you can literally cruise the vistas. Pretty basic, simple packaging, and shout out to my neighbor for bringing it to me when USPS delivered it to the wrong house. I guess I should say this video is brought to you by my neighbor. Could have just kept themselves a mini PC. They probably didn't even know. Some instructions here, probably nothing too particularly interesting. Look how small this mini PC is. They really mean mini when they say mini. That is absolutely tiny. Let's set this aside for just a moment as we go into the box, because there should be some things in here worth noting as well. So of course we do have our power supply with a simple barrel plug, and then we also have this mount. This is very similar to a mount I've seen before, and you can use this to mount it to the back of a monitor, something like that, just to kind of tuck it out of the way. Man, that is a lot of stickers. For faster setup, avoid Wi-Fi or LAN initially connecting. Might trigger long updates to delaying the desktop access. That's interesting. Scan and join Intel inside. So many stickers. Here on the bottom, you can see model V1, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, Intel N150 for the processor. Let's go around the device. You have a power button, a couple of USB-A ports, headphone jack, which is, I would guess this is probably a combo headphone microphone. We have a grill over here for some ventilation. On the back side, another sticker telling us not to use our internet while we're going through the setup process. LAN port, couple of video outs, so HDMI, and then display port, two more USB ports. We have our barrel plug for power. It's probably one of those, what are they called, Kensington locks. And then over here, more ventilation. No USB-C, slightly disappointing for that, but still 4 USB-A ports, not too bad. And again, this thing is very, very small. Oh, and to make matters even worse, the sticker left residue. Come on, guys. If you're gonna put stickers on, at least make sure they come off clean. I was gonna do a quick disassembly and see what this thing looks like on the inside, but unfortunately, after taking off the little rubber feet, I've realized that the holes to get to the little Phillips head screws is actually too small for my screwdriver bit to actually make it down there to them. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be doing that in this video. Here's one cool thing. Unlike last time with the very, very small N100 mini PC that they sent me, the mounting holes actually line up with the mount that they sent me this time. With this one, as you can see, it is just like even smaller than that. The holes are a little bit too close together, and this was the same bracket that they sent, and it just did not fit. So not the case this time. It's going to actually be mountable for me. I was worried from the stickers saying not to have the internet connected when you go through setup that they had done something weird to the Windows 11 setup process, but it doesn't appear like that's the case. This looks like a pretty normal Windows 11 setup. So if nothing strange happens, we'll just skip this part. And indeed, nothing strange did happen. So now we are looking at the desktop, and I've already done a little bit of work to kind of get this thing set up, but I do want to quickly tell you and just sort of show you there was really nothing in the way of bloatware at all. They didn't have any pre-installed software. I've seen some of these mini PCs where you install it and Chrome is randomly installed already, and there's extensions installed that are a little bit dubious. Nothing like that going on at all. This seems like a clean, normal installation of Windows 11. Now, I have installed a couple of games, which I'm going to be showing you the gameplay of, and we're looking at still 360 gigabytes of free space still remaining. And honestly, I'm not going to be playing any of those games, so I went ahead and uninstalled them. 394 gigabytes of free space on a 475 gigabyte SSD. So this mini PC is not meant to be doing a lot of heavy tasks, video editing, gaming, things like that. It's for lightweight stuff. And typically what that means is stuff that is in your web browser. So let's just fire up a common browser. This is Brave. It's based on Chrome. It's going to be very, very similar in terms of performance to Chrome. Let's fire up YouTube and we'll see how quickly it's able to load YouTube up. That's about what you're expecting to see. Let's fire up another tab, and this will be Threads, and you'll see how this loads up as well. It takes a little bit of time because there's a lot going on here. Boom, there you go. It's not a lightning fast browsing experience, to say the least, but I think it's adequate for a lot of people. You can see that what I've done is I have installed several progressive web apps for the things I'm going to probably use this thing for, and that's an entertainment center. So let's click on my Netflix link, and it's going to just open up Netflix inside of a browser. And for stuff like this, again, let me make sure that I'm muted here. It's going to be just fine. I can go and click on a video. We're just going to pick something somewhat at random, and it should be able to handle this just fine. As you can see, we're not going to let this play any further because I'm going to get hit with some sort of a copyright strike, but you can see what I mean. Close that out, and let's jump into Sling TV, where I actually have an Air TV box that allows me to stream local television. NBC News Daily. This is going to grab my local TV and begin streaming it. This is what this thing's going to be perfectly adequate at. Took a little bit of time. We're getting there, slowly but surely. There you go. There's a viral video being played on NBC News. Just to give you one more quick data point, here is my own website, and everything loads pretty quickly here, but let's jump back to something that's really quite heavy like YouTube, and it's definitely going to chug a little bit, but then we can go to, let's just go to our subscriptions and pick a video. You can see here, it loaded that pretty quickly, and I can scrub through this video. Once I'm on a page, multimedia, stuff like that, it's going, slightly graphic, it's going to be just fine for this sort of use. So one thing that is occasionally crazy underwhelming for me is going to be the Wi-Fi speed. This mini computer is literally right next to me. My router is probably 7 feet away, and I have a 1 gig connection, and we are getting 75 down and 38 up. That is really, really bad. And in fact, I can kind of demonstrate for you how bad that is. I'm just going to grab my phone, which is effectively the same distance, and we'll run the same test. I don't even need to let it go all the way through, but you can see there that we are in the 600, almost 700 range. You're not going to get your full 1 gig over Wi-Fi, which we're getting pretty close though, 705, 706. This thing is getting a much, 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 much lower score, and I would highly encourage you, if you can do Ethernet, do Ethernet. Otherwise, you're probably going to be experiencing a fairly degraded Wi-Fi experience. I will say, if you want to get better Wi-Fi speeds, you can probably buy a pretty inexpensive USB Wi-Fi dongle like I have used here, just a cheap one from TP-Link that has Wi-Fi 6, and that did improve my Wi-Fi speeds by a pretty good margin. So as I said earlier, this does have an M.2 drive, and that might convince some people to expect some fairly decent speeds in terms of both read and write. But if you actually benchmark it, or if you just use the device for a while, you're probably going to realize that's just not really the case. A good M.2 drive is probably going to have speeds that are 3, 4, 5 times faster than this, maybe even faster than that, depending on how high-end you go. This is, at the end of the day, a fairly inexpensive mini PC, and because of that, this is the kind of hard drive speed you can expect. It's not something so horrible that you can't live with it, but if you're expecting really, really good read-write speeds because it's an M.2 drive, that's just not going to happen. All right, guys, so we are looking at Rocket League running at 1080p with pretty much all of the settings turned down as low as they will go. Let me just tell you very quickly, I'm playing this through a capture card, so there is like a quarter-second delay, just enough of a delay to make any game like that really, really hard to play. So don't judge my Rocket League skills. Instead, judge the performance of the game. And it does otherwise feel quite smooth. We're sitting in that 30 to 40 FPS range, very rarely truly dipping below 30 FPS during gameplay. Sometimes during like a cinematic, you might see it. But otherwise, yeah, 30 to 40 FPS seems to be where we are at. Now, you could drop this down to 720p and potentially squeeze out a few more frames, but I don't really think that you need to do that, my goodness, as long as you're okay with being around that 30 FPS range. I will say that looking back at the N100 mini PC that I reviewed maybe a couple of months back, this might feel a bit more consistent. I'd have to go back and really like compare these like apples to apples, but I feel like it's maybe a little bit more consistent. If you're expecting like a major performance improvement in N100 to N150 in gaming, it doesn't seem like there's a whole heck of a lot there, maybe just a bit. So this is an open world Viking game called Valheim. And what I've had to do here is drop my graphics down to 720p. And you can see everything else is pretty much turned all the way down. The one thing that I didn't mess with was the render scale. It really starts to make the game look bad. Let's just drop it down to like 75%. We'll squeeze out a few more frames. As you can see, things are starting to look pretty darn blurry. But frame rate in the top left, we're sitting around 30 FPS-ish. I would definitely want this to look a little bit better. With the resolution at 1080p and the render scale still turned down just a little bit, it's pretty rough. It does look a little bit better, but yeah, we're sitting in the low 20 FPS range. This is once again very, very similar to the gaming performance I saw on the N100. Of course, playing the game locally on this computer is not the only way to game. You can also use something like Steam in-home streaming, and that is what we're going to try here. I've got a controller paired to it. We are on my projector, and we're going to fire up a match and see if this somewhat underperforming Wi-Fi, let's see if it can actually handle this in good enough of a fashion for this to be playable. And I can probably already tell that it's not going to be great because the latency is fairly significant. This reminds me a lot of trying to play the game through my capture card, where there's just a little bit of a delay with everything I am doing, making things a lot more difficult. Maybe we should try that other Wi-Fi card. All right, so we're back in here again, this time using that USB Wi-Fi card, and that is a significant improvement. It's not perfect, but I would say that with a little bit of practice, you could potentially play this game that way. I've not seen this course. Look at the goal on that. What on earth? I'll show you the latency so you can see me pressing the button and you can see when the jump happens. It's still bad, but it's not as bad as it was before. All right, so what is the verdict on this thing? This is such a great sort of example of you have a tool and then you have a job. Use the right tool for the right job. That's how things make sense. That's how things work best. Don't buy this to do video editing. Don't buy this to do gaming. Probably don't buy this to do game streaming because you're probably going to need either a long enough Ethernet cable or just some sort of Wi-Fi interface that's better. It's been one of the biggest bottlenecks for me on this device. But if you get this thing for the right price, use their coupon down here, use my promo code down below, and use it for what it's meant to be used for. Mount it behind your monitor, hide it somewhere in your entertainment system. That way that if you ever need to pull up a web browser and stream something like, guess what, guys? I actually watched the Super Bowl through this, through Sling TV. It works just fine. Get some kind of a mouse and keyboard interface that you can sit on your couch and use, and it's going to be really, really good for something like that. I could even see somebody getting rid of Windows 11 off this thing completely and installing like Mint Linux or something like that, something more lightweight. And I bet this thing would absolutely fly at that point. But again, there's a tool and there's a job. Use the right tool for the right job, and you're going to be much happier with that mindset. I will be putting a link in the description down below if you want to purchase this computer. If you click on that link and then you purchase something through Amazon, I will earn commission through that. As always, with all of my reviews, no money exchanged hands, so I was not paid to review this other than that they sent me the computer, and they will be seeing this review at the exact same time as you are, which means they had no early copy and no editorial input. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.